TFA Fam, what is up? We are going to continue our early look at sleepers for 2021. We've already done quarterbacks, already done wide receivers. Tonight, we are bringing the sleeper fire to the running back position. Real quick, before we jump into it, please hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not yet subscribed, make sure you leave a comment along the way. Let us know what you think of some of these picks if we leave anybody out. Same thing with the other videos. The floor is yours first, sir. Who is a sleeper for 2021 at the running back position that you would like to talk about?
You know, it's almost funny. It's almost like it's come full circle here a little bit with the guy that I'm going to talk about because especially draft time last year, I was hammering this dude and crushing him and everything else. And I still don't think that he's good. I don't think he's a great running back or there's certainly no RB1 league winning appeal here. But I think that he's being vastly undervalued for, I think, the opportunity that could be coming his way. And that's running back Zack Moss from the Buffalo Bills. You know, the Bills didn't really do anything this offseason to upgrade that position. Didn't bring anybody in, didn't draft anybody in the draft that stands to get in Zack Moss's way. Devin Singletary is just who he is. He's really just a guy. I don't think he's that good at all. And, you know, you look at Zack Moss, played in 13 games last year, only had 43% of the opportunity share, 112 carries, 18 targets, 30. But he did have 30 red zone touches, which is 24th among all running backs. He finished with 481 rushing yards, 95 receiving yards, only averaged 7.8 fantasy points per game. But some of his efficiency numbers weren't bad for the limited touches. He had 27th in evaded tackles for a running back. That had only 112 carries is impressive. And then 27th in total yards created, but he was 7th in yards created per touch. So he was very efficient on the opportunities that he was given on a per touch basis. Now, some of the factors are still there for him. Josh Allen is obviously still there, and Josh Allen is going to limit his ceiling because Josh Allen and his propensity to rush it in once they get down inside the 5. And so that is going to hurt him a little bit. But Zack Moss still, you know, in limited touches, still had 5 touchdowns last year. But the best thing is he's going in the 9th round right now. And so he's being really, really undervalued right now. And I think he's a guy that, you know, you're not going to, you know, like I said, he doesn't have this RB1 type ceiling, but I think he could end up being, if he finishes RB20, RB21 this year, really wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think that he could push for, you know, 200 total touches this year. And I think that could be enough that boosts him up enough, you know, to kind of get him into that low end RB2, high end RB3 flex play that you're looking to play him in. He was more of a pass catcher coming out of college. I mean, that was kind of his calling card, but he really wasn't utilized as that last year. That was only 18 total targets this year. So hopefully that goes up a little bit. But overall, like I said, he's not a sexy name that you're just going to feel like that, like Tony Pollard, who's going in that same range where if Zeke goes down, Tony Pollard is a slam dunk top 12 running back. That's just not the case for Zack Moss. He's just not going to be. But I think for what he is, for where he's being taken, I think that he has a solid floor and somebody that I think you could probably start in a pinch on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, that's the thing with him is the price there. I mean, I think last year wasn't he going 4th, 5th round last year? He was relatively high last year. I feel like at some point there was a lot of hype surrounding him, and we're not on that train whatsoever last year. Now at that price, I could see him having some, you know, flex worthy weeks for sure. You know, with the touches with Josh Allen, and then the Bills OC came out and said that they're not necessarily looking to run the ball any more often than they did last year. They just want to be more efficient whenever they do run the ball. So, but like I said, at that price, it really doesn't matter. And if, you know, they, for whatever reason, peel back Josh Allen's rush attempts, he's definitely going to be the goal line guy. Devin Singletary is not going to be the goal line back for that team. So there's definitely, I think, some hidden upside with him, depending on how things go. And I'm going to get my first one out of the way here. If you've been following along with anything I've been doing, whether on Twitter or the content here, you know I love this dude Just going to talk about him now, get him out of the way. Michael Carter, New York Jets, absolutely a sleeper. RB32 on underdog right now, going in the mid seventh. And the reason why I like him most is because of the depth chart where he's sitting. But if you are enamored by the production that his teammate Javonte Williams put up last year, like you have to at least like Michael Carter as well, because they literally almost damn near the same exact production that Javonte Williams had. Michael Carter was also able to put up in that same offense last year. But as far as the Jets go, he got picked in the beginning of the fourth round. They added Elijah Vera Tucker. They traded up in the first round to get him, to put him next to Mekhi Becton. So that left side of their line is much improved from where it was last year. And now you have, Elijah Moore, who we talked about. He's taking off already, and apparently just the absolute show. The offensive line improvements with some of the weapons they brought in. They still have Denzel Mims there, brought in your boy Keelan Cole. Corey Davis came in during the offseason as well. So I think he is going to have a little bit of room to run. And like I said, on that depth chart, there's really nothing that's holding him back. As of right now, the reports are coming out that Tevin Coleman is kind of the guy who is penciled into that starting role. But I think that has way more to do with his familiarity with the coaching staff and the scheme that they have in place, more so than him being locked in as a starter. So maybe it's not week one that Michael Carter is the starter for the Jets, but week 2, week 3, week 4, it's going to be early on in the season where he takes over. He's not going to have to be a 80% touch kind of guy in order to pay off RB32 price. And I really wouldn't be surprised to see him finish as like a back end RB2, running back 3 rather. And kind of with what you were saying with Zack Moss, just the ability to give you some flex production as far as running back goes. So Michael Carter, lock him in.
But he's somebody that I feel like is probably going to
No buts. No buts. No buts.
You're not worried about Ty Johnson at all?
Nah.
So I think this is one of those ambiguous backfields that we definitely need to be monitoring as the season gets closer, as we get training camp news and stuff like that, to kind of see how this is going to play out. Because I still have hesitation that Michael Carter can be a true 3-down workhorse back. I don't think that's his game. So they're going to have to have somebody else there that's going to have to carry that load. I have no faith that it's going to be Tevin Coleman. I think Tevin Coleman's kind of dust at this point in his career. And I do think that somebody like Ty Johnson could end up being that guy who splits touches with him, because, Ty Johnson isn't, he is a 23 years old, will be turning 24 later this year. But, if you look at Ty Johnson's numbers, he has a upper percentile speed score, 86th percentile speed score, solid 60, almost 60th percentile burst score. He's just somebody that really hasn't been given a ton of opportunities. But if you look at last year, I know it's obviously a really small sample size, but the one opportunity that they actually kind of gave him last year, where he had 22 carries, he had 117 yards and a touchdown in that game and 19.7 fantasy points. So I would not rule out Ty Johnson as a guy that I think people should be paying at least some attention to from that backfield, and kind of seeing how this thing plays out, because he is still there. And I really wouldn't be surprised. He is obviously the bigger back, 5'11", 210, kind of that prototypical size that you kind of look for a little bit in your early down, as an early down back. And so,
yeah, I don't think Michael Carter, like I said, I don't think he's going to be the 80% touch kind of guy. But like I said, at RB32, I don't think he has to be able to pay off that price. I could see a scenario where Carter's getting like 60%, and then whether it's Ty Johnson or whoever else they have on that depth chart. Like I said, Tevin Coleman, I'm not worried about. LaMichael P. Ryan, he's already running with the 2s and the 3s. I don't think he's gotten any work with the 1, so I'm not worried about him either. So it kind of seems like it's going to be those 3 that we've already mentioned who are going to be getting the cracks with the touches. And I just think that my bet would be on Michael Carter to get the majority of the 50-50 split. Like I said, RB32, I think he makes for a perfectly fine. The way that I am attacking him is, obviously I want to have 2 running backs before that, and then he's kind of my third guy, and then you take some high upside shots and some guys later in your draft. I definitely wouldn't want him as my RB2 by any means. If you're taking a 0 RB approach, I would not want him as a guy who I'm kind of penciling in as a starter on a week to week basis. But like I said, RB32, I'm completely fine with that price, and I think he's going to pay that off.
Yeah, I don't hate it either. I think he is probably gonna. I think you'll probably end up seeing him once August gets here as like probably a 5th round pick, probably a 6th round pick, depending on how things kind of shake out a little bit here. And I still don't necessarily hate that spot for him, because I think it's still possible that he could handle 55-60% of the touches, which would qualify him for somebody that's I think that could pay off that ADP. Moving it
Who you got
forward,
next?
I think that there are a couple running backs here that I feel like that are more. They don't really have a clear cut role as somebody that you're just going to be like, okay, you have to take this guy because you're going to be able to use him as a flex, right? More so, these are going to be guys that are kind of those golden lottery ticket running backs that you would be taking later in your drafts. And I was going to mention Tony Pollard, but listen, there's nothing I can tell you that everybody doesn't already know. Like Tony Pollard, I think he could have some standalone value on his own, an injury occurring to Zeke. But he is that there is no better handcuff running back than him at this point. And he's proven it that when he gets opportunities, like, we talk about Alexander Madison every year, like, ooh, you got to have Alexander Madison. And then he gets those opportunities, and every fucking time he falls flat on his face. I remember it every year because Dalvin Cook gets hurt every year, and the DFS community gets super excited every year, every time it happens. Like, oh man, okay, Alexander Madison week, boys. Here we go. He's 60% owned in DFS, and he gets you 4 fantasy points. So yeah, I'm not really all that sold that on my excitement for Alexander Madison is waning very, very quickly. But Tony Pollard has secured that role of, if something happens to Zeke Elliott, we're looking at a top 12 running back. But so I don't want to talk about him. So let's talk about Darrell Henderson and Darrington Evans. And I think both of those guys qualify for that status of, they're more of a lottery ticket if anything happens to the incumbent starter. We know Cam Akers is going to probably handle, 65, maybe even 70+% of the touches in that backfield. And Cam Akers has true RB1 upside. That offense is going to be electric this year with Matt Stafford and Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and the additions of even like a Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson in another year in that offense. So that offense is going to be really, really good. And so that's only going to mean good things for Cam Akers. And I think Cam Akers can be used more as a pass catcher as well. They didn't really utilize him as much as I was liking to see last year. And he is a more than capable pass catcher as well. So Darrell Henderson, if anything happens to Cam Akers, though, Darrell Henderson is in line to be, because Malcolm Brown is gone there. So there's no like, oh, well, it's going to be like a 2-headed monster there with Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown. Like, if anything happens to Cam Akers, it is wheels up for Darrell Henderson, and he's probably a top 15 running back. So stashing him on your bench, I think, is a very smart decision. Darrington Evans is probably a guy who some people have completely forgotten about, like this guy even exists, that he was a 2nd-round pick last year, a 3rd-round pick last year for the Titans, but that he was just picked, but he just got hurt last year. Like, there was not a whole lot. He got hurt earlier in the year. He only appeared in 5 games last year, but if people forget, he has an 86th percentile speed score, 81st percentile burst score, 5'10", 203. I'm not that concerned with his height and weight. Like, I think that he could be he's not going to be a guy. So if Derrick Henry goes down, like, he's not going to get 30 touches a game. It's not going to happen. He probably gets 15 to 18 touches, utilizes the pass catcher. He's utilized in between the tackles. But I think this guy that is somebody that is absolutely free, that people have just completely forgotten about. I think he probably gets more involved this year. I think you could possibly see him utilized more as the pass catching back, because he was really good in college at that, and at Appalachian State. And so I like Darrington Evans as kind of that post-hype sleeper. People were kind of on that bandwagon a little bit last year. He got hurt, kind of fizzled out. And now, like, people have just completely forgotten about him and written him off. And I think that's a mistake, especially for a running back like Derrick Henry. I'm not calling injury for him and it's going to try to say that, I think he's going to get hurt. But he is 27 years old. He has been utilized heavily over the last couple of seasons. And so, for a guy his size, it wouldn't surprise me if he did get hurt. And if he does, wheels up Darrington Evans.
Yeah, completely. I've literally forgotten about him sometimes, because I think it literally did nothing last year. So I like that call, especially the post-hype sleeper, a term that gets thrown around a lot, and I think that definitely fits with Evans. So, with you bringing up Darrell Henderson and someone who can take off if the guy ahead of him gets injured, I'm going to bring Mr. Gus the Bus Edwards to the table. RB39 going at the end of the ninth on underdog drafts. Quietly finished as RB35 last year in half PPR scoring. He only averaged 7.8 points per game, but now we have Mark Ingram out of the equation, so that's going to open up some of those carries. And the thing that interests me the most with Edwards is obviously one, the offense which he resides in. Even though there's been this emphasis on the passing game for Baltimore, they're still gonna, I think, if they got to like league average, that would be a huge jump for them. Like I don't see them getting above like 15th in pass rate or anything like that. I think they're going to be more around like the mid 20s, which for them is going to be a huge increase in pass volume. But for us as fantasy players, really not going to, it's not going to be something that's like super sexy for us. So there's still going to be a run first offense. He just inked that 2-year contract extension. And then if you look at where Edwards was getting some of his carries last year, where he was getting the edge over J.K. Dobbins, he was getting more of those carries inside of the 10 and inside of the 5. Edwards had 17 carries inside of the 10 to Dobbins 13, and then he had 9 carries inside of the 5 to Dobbins 8. So obviously, on an offense that isn't targeting the running back position, I don't think it's something that we can, even with the reports coming out that they're apparently getting Dobbins more involved, I don't think that's something that we can count on. Like I want to see that first before I put any kind of faith in that. But if anything were to happen to Dobbins, even for a couple of weeks, or if it were a more serious long-term injury, behind Edwards, you're literally looking at Justice Hill, and that's really it. So Gus Edwards is somebody who I am super interested in. I think he has standalone value just because of how much the Ravens run the ball. And then like I said, if something goes wrong with Dobbins, it's going to be wheels up for Gus Edwards. And I think something, the last point I want to make, I feel like he wrongly kind of gets typecast as this kind of just like grinder, plotter kind of guy because he's the backup running back. He doesn't get as much run. But last year he was actually 7th in breakaway runs and 7th in breakaway run rate. So the dude has a little bit of juice as well. So Gus Edwards is someone I'm definitely interested in for the 2021 season.
No, I think he's somebody that people definitely should be taking a look at in that range. And I think somebody that has his own standard, like I said, like standalone value. Like he's not going to bring you a lot in terms of pass catching. I probably have a little bit more interest in him in a half-point PPR league than a full-point PPR. But I mean, over 700 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns last year, and he was also 8 goal line carries, which was 14th among all running backs. He was 29th in yards created, 23rd in yards created per touch. So I like Gus Edwards, and I think he's something that people should be taking a look at. Kind of that bench stash that if something happens to starter, and I think so on certain weeks that depending on the matchups, that I think you could probably plug him in and play him because he's going to get opportunity. I don't think that J.K. Dobbins is all of a sudden going to be 80% usage rate or anything like that, opportunity share. Because if he was, then my opinion on it, because I think I think the disconnect for people, some people, we talk about J.K. Dobbins, when we talk about him negatively, people take it as like we say like he sucks, and that's not the case. I think J.K. Dobbins very well could be the second best like talent running back in last year's draft class. He's that good. But unless the Ravens are going to utilize him that way, and then when you have a quarterback who runs as much as Lamar Jackson does, it's just going to limit his ceiling. And that's the tough part with J.K. Dobbins is I just don't think he has the ceiling that people think that he does. And could I be wrong? Sure. I mean, maybe they do commit to him in that way. And if they do, awesome, because they should, because he's that good.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it. Like he wasn't utilized as a pass catcher and everything else. And so until that changes, I think the number 2 running back here on the Ravens depth chart, certainly has some appeal, because if something were to happen to J.K. Dobbins, he's going to soak up all these touches. And so he then becomes, a strong RB2, I think, in that situation. So the last couple of running backs that I just wanted to hit on are more just kind of guys, again, kind of like we did with the wide receivers, is guys that I just kind of want I would be paying attention to and really monitoring their situation and kind of seeing how things play out. Like Larry Roundtree is definitely one, and some people are going to be like, who's that? And he is a former Missouri Tiger running back who was drafted this year, not with any heavy draft capital. He's not like he's not some like athletic like stud or anything like that, right? Like, I think he is probably more of just a guy than anything. But we saw last year that Josh Kelly is not a guy. Like he was not good. He had the one game, and then it was just. I mean, when Kalen Balaj comes in and just takes your job from you, right? Like everything was lined up for Joshua Kelly to have a decent year last year, because we know that that Austin Eckler is never going to be a workhorse back. Like he's not going to get 70+ percent of the opportunities in a backfield. Just not going to happen. He just doesn't have that. He just doesn't profile as that. He's kind of like an Aaron Jones like type player, right? Where he is going to win in efficiency and through the passing game. He's not going to give you 250 attempts. That's just not going to happen. So they're going to need this guy, which is what they were hoping that Joshua Kelly would turn into. He did not. Now, it's possible Josh Kelly bounces back, and I know Justin Jackson has flashed at times as well in that backfield, but he can never stay healthy either. So, but they did take a shot on Larry Roundtree, and I think he's somebody that people should be monitoring through the draft process and training camp and OTAs and everything else to kind of see what he's doing and how he looks for this team. Because, like I said, he's not a great running back. He's not somebody that's going to, like I said, be a league winner. But I think that he's good enough that I think that he can supplant that, end up being the early down goal line back here and this explosive Charger offense. So he's somebody that I definitely want people to be monitoring.
The last guy I want to wrap this up on, kind of in the similar vein of just, Larry Roundtree and guys to pay attention to, is Elijah Mitchell, the rookie running back for the second rookie running back that the Niners took in the 2021 draft. Currently going at RB 66. He's outside of the top 200 in ADP. So like you don't even have to worry about drafting him at this point, especially in your just standard redraft leagues. But he's definitely a guy to monitor. The early reports that were coming out of the rookie mini camps for San Fran said that he was impressing every day. He was making plays, and he has a pretty solid collegiate profile as well. Came in at 5'10", 201, ran a 4.4 40. And his stats might not be like the craziest coming out of UL Lafayette, but you have to keep in mind that he was rotating work with two other running backs. So it was a three-headed monster for the Raging Cajuns, and the 3 out of his 4 seasons he had at least 875 rushing yards. Like I said, despite rotating with 2 other running backs, and he had a 6% target share in 2 out of those 4 years, which doesn't sound like a lot whenever we're talking about NFL target shares, but for collegiate purposes and for the running back position, like that's pretty. It's respectable, and I think we could be looking at Mitchell as potentially the pass catching, like change of pace kind of back, because Trey Sermon didn't really show a heavy aptitude for pass catching, and I think that could go to Elijah Mitchell, and that could end up being his role. And obviously, much like Kansas City, we want to get as many shots on Shanahan offenses as well. So he is the last guy that I will bring up, just to kind of keep in the back of your minds as the offseason progresses and we start to get some of these reports coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike that at all. I think he's another solid option there. I think he is a very intriguing guy, especially because of his athletic profile. Antonio Gibson-esque in terms of that, but not obviously with the draft capital that Antonio Gibson got. So yeah, and again, it really wouldn't surprise me if with all things said and done, Elijah Mitchell turns out to be a better prospect than what Trey Sermon is. But we'll see. I'm not calling it and saying it's a likelihood of anything like that. But I think that it is in the low end range of outcomes that could possibly happen there because of his athleticism and being in that system.
So, folks, you have heard it all. And Elijah Mitchell, RB1 season. Let's go. leave a comment, rate, review on podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed and make sure you're keeping it locked in here to the TFA airwaves. And we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.
Bye. I told her what time it was.